My goal is for women to one day live across the globe as fearlessly as this potato of a man did stupidly. The character, not Luke Wilson. Because while this Luke Wilson does not understand the man versus bear in the woods debate, the other Luke Wilson married Elle Woods, and we support that. Today I watched Vacancy from 2007 starring Luke Wilson and Kate Beckinsale. Here's what you need to know about Vacancy before we even get started. The premise is in fact something of our nightmares. You know, getting attacked in a hotel room. The execution, however, I'm entirely blaming the less hot Wilson brother. But let's get into it. This 85-minute film begins with 2 minutes and 45 seconds of opening credits. But not the kind that tell a story, the kind that you would think would be at like the beginning of James Bond. But also it doesn't have like a fun track like the beginning of Monsters, Inc. But anyways, then it morphs into about 15 minutes of them being the biggest assholes ever in the history of assholes to each other. They were in the midst of getting divorced, but they had to go to some kind of anniversary party and pretend they were still married because they weren't ready to tell their families yet, right? And in the middle of the drive, Kate Beckinsale fell asleep. And apparently there was some construction work on the interstate, so Luke Wilson got off the interstate like 3 hours beforehand and was driving in the middle of nowhere. And Kate Beckinsale wakes up and she's like, well, why'd you get off the interstate? Why are we in the middle of nowhere? And she's like, I wouldn't have gotten us lost. And he's all like, could you be any more of a bitch? And then there's a raccoon in the middle of the road and he tries to dodge it and it kind of fucks up with their car. So they pulled into like some kind of gas station in the middle of the night when there's nowhere else around. And so they pull into this tiny gas station and the only person there is the attendant who like looks under the hood real quick and he's like, okay, it's just got like a bent fan blade. It's going to make some weird noises. And they have a map that tells them distinctly how to get to the fucking interstate, but they're like, well, how do we get here to get back to the interstate? And he's like, well, you don't want to go to that particular town. You want to take all of these roads to get to the interstate. But the particular place that he told them to go isn't even on the fucking map. But let's move on. So they're driving down the road and the car stalls and they're stuck on the side of the road like 2 miles away. So they have two choices. They can sit in the car until morning on the side of the road where nobody's around, or they can walk 2 miles back up this road that they don't know to the gas station. And that's what they do without any weaponry. Not a crowbar, not a tire iron, no gun, just vibes. So right behind the gas station is a tiny motel, and there was nobody in the gas station when they got there, so they went into the motel. The first thing that happens when they walk into the motel, like lobby or what the fuck ever, is a woman screaming at the top of her lungs. And Kate Beckinsale was like, oh no, we gotta fucking go. And Luke Wilson was like, it's probably nothing. And then the guy walks out and he's got a gross mustache and fucking Jeffrey Dahmer glasses. And he holds up a remote and he's all like, you know, it's a slow night watching horror movies. Listen, I have over 25 years of horror movie experience. You cannot tell me just a woman screaming like that is just a horror movie. With just screaming, no background music, no dialogue, not like a chainsaw noise. Unless he's watching those handful of horror movies that dare not speak their name. You know, the one that starts with an S and ends with an Urbian film. But I've never seen that, so I don't know. Anyway, basically everything goes to shit and they have to get a hotel room for the night. So they get into the room and it's big nasty, like, ew, it got roaches. And Kate Beckinsale still feels like that she can sleep under that blanket. Why, I don't know, but that's not important. So then the phone rings, meaning that the landline is actually connected. And then somebody's like pounding on the front door. Well, there's nobody on the phone. And then Luke Wilson, instead of looking through the window to see who's at the door, just opens the door fucking wide in the middle of the night. Like it's gonna be Santa Claus and not a murderer. Well, then the door to the connecting room starts banging like fucking crazy, and he opens that shit too. Except the door on the other side is actually being banged on, and obviously he can't open that end, but he opened his end, and, you know, he starts banging the fuck back, and he's like, I'm gonna go talk to the manager. So you left your wife in there in a room that's being harassed to go talk to a manager. You didn't even bother barricading anything. Like, I know lots of people who barricade that door the minute they get in there. Like, once the banging fucking started, why didn't you just barricade the door all night? So he tells the manager, but the manager's like, there's nobody there. You're the only people here tonight. And Luke Wilson's like, okay. So he goes back to the room and he's like, I'm going to watch TV. But they get no cable. But they left some VHS tapes. And it's snuff made in the room. And they're like, oh shit. So then these masked guys try to attack them. And they're trapped in the room being recorded. And then Luke Wilson goes back and starts reviewing the tapes to see like maybe if there was something they missed, because they couldn't figure out how the mask guys were getting in the room without coming in through the front door. And let me show you this. I couldn't get a good photo because this movie is dark as shit, but this is the dirty ass bathroom rug. Do you know what was under the dirty ass bathroom rug? A trap door. There was a trap door under the shower rug. And I think these people were just betting on the fact that the shower was too dirty for anybody to want to step barefoot in there with the fear of hepatitis. But I'm also thinking, what if you were pooping? Are you just going to get murdered on the toilet? Like, imagine you've been on the road 8 hours and you've got post White Castle shits, and then some guy's just popping out through your floorboard. At that point, I'm not locked in there with you, you're locked in there with me, and we're both going down. Now, being this is 2007, yes, they did have cell phones, but apparently they weren't within range where the car broke down, but I did not see them try again when they got to the motel other than her dropping the cell phone. However, and what I remember from landlines and what I had to Google, even though the power was cut, the landline should have still worked, but they didn't try it the entire time. They did not try to call 911 from their hotel room. They only tried it at the payphone outside, which why would you do that? Because everybody can see you. And then there's this trucker who just shows up in the middle of the night, and they have no idea whether he's a friend or foe, so they just start banging on the window where everybody can see them yelling help. To be completely honest, I don't think I would have trusted a tractor trailer that just so happened to show up at a murder motel in the middle of the night. Only because we've already been attacked, and there's that fear of human schmafficking in the middle of the night. I'm not saying it would happen, I am just saying that seems like the most logical case in that given scenario. But anyways, then they go through the tunnels, and there's a whole lot of chasing them, and they end up back in the motel lobby, where they're able to call for help. And then the cop shows up, and they almost get away. They got in the cop car, which I am fairly certain this is a firearm that Luke Wilson put his whole ass hand on, that when they murdered the cop and started trying to get to them, they left in the car to run back in the motel. Right there. Hand right on it. We didn't take it. And so Kate Beckinsale hides in the attic because they got tunnels in the attic and they got tunnels in the floor, which I'm fairly certain are not OSHA compliant. But she's hiding in the attic, and then Luke Wilson gets stabbed and he lays on the ground for hours. Fairly certain he is like dead. It's been a very long time. The whole sun has come up and everything. Well, she runs out getting attacked. She manages to find her car that's been like jerry-rigged to work, even though they don't have the keys. And the bad guy goes through her sunroof, and she takes off full blast, running into the motel, and he gets launched like a human meat missile, but she doesn't, even though she's not wearing her seatbelt. And then shoots the manager. And then it turns out Luke Wilson's alive. He just laid there, and she had to do all the work. The end. Also, I don't know if this flashlight was just in the room or if they brought it with them, but tell me that does not look like paraphernalia. I thought it was paraphernalia until I realized it was a flashlight. Anyways, back to this. Did I like it? Again, premise scary. This is shit that happens in real life, for the most part. The execution, kind of goofy. Mostly goofy. But I am putting this one in the pile of give it to me, let me direct, let me try it, and I feel like I could give this a good-ass movie. Even though I have no directing or on-set experience. But that's beside the point. I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10 because, I'm going to watch it, but I'm going to yell at Luke Wilson the whole time. So 5 out of 10. Okay, bye. Roxanne, you don't have to leave on your vacancy light. You only have one home, and I would like to spend the night. Roxanne.